Well, hello. I think we've probably talked the differences between turnaround projects and brownfield projects in general, and straight by the book PMBOK project management. If not to death, certainly sufficient. Um, Most of the people that are currently ready to get it have got it, and the people that aren't ready to get it aren't going to get it until they're ready anyway. So we're going to move on, and the way I want to move on is by going, basically most the way, if not all the way back to the beginnings of my own publishing here in LinkedIn. Um, I started out with written articles, and timelines was one of my earliest um, speaking points, call it. And what I mean by timelines and adherence to timelines is the period of time that whatever program you've adopted lays out for the proper planning and execution of a turnaround or your project. And many people will have had to, if you have a program in place, then many people had to sign off on it. So the question I had then, and the question I still have, is if a program is adopted and signed off all the way to the vice president and presidential level, how is it that the very basis of the program, which in the case of turnaround planning will be the timeline, can be utterly disrespected and nobody does anything about it? So, I don't think that people go through the expense to build elaborate turnaround programs for their facilities with the intention that they don't be followed. But following timelines is a challenge, and I don't know if there's anybody out there that, from all aspects, not just the turnaround manager's aspect. I mean, who hasn't heard their GCs telling repeatedly, we could give you way better performance if you could bring us in sooner? And usually the reply is, well, we'd bring you in sooner if we had anything to give you sooner. But if that facility that conversation took place in is working under the premise that they've adopted a turnaround program, that program will have had a timeline. And typically that's going to be 24 to 36 months. Maybe it's a much smaller facility. Maybe they've agreed on an 18-month timeline. Whatever they've agreed on has been agreed right from the bottom all the way to the top. Yet, I challenge you to review adherence to timelines in your own experiences. You get into a facility that with a 26-month turnaround program, and you start receiving scope at T minus 12. That's not adherence to timelines, right? So I presented in a talk I did for the community practice back before the plague started a different way to approach timelines. I mean, the timelines came to me from a program. I was a part of developing a turnaround program and implementing a turnaround program, and the timeline was built into the program. But what we didn't have was a supporting structure to tie that timeline to. And not having that supporting structure, in my view, virtually ensures that your timelines will be broken before you even start. And if you are wanting to see success or ultimately excellence out of your turnaround program, the very basis is the timeline. So I believe that the reason we're not following timelines is because we don't have a good long-range plan structure in our industry for the most part anymore. When I started in industry, the standard, it was everywhere, whether you're in a refinery or a powerhouse, or it didn't matter. It was 20 years. The project life cycle, call it, was a 20-year timeline. And maintenance plans were 20-year plans. So when I hear people tell me that it's not possible to build a meaningful 10-year plan, I'm not buying it, because I have the experience myself that tells me that's not true. When I started in my career, I started in a facility that was just successfully completing their first 20-year maintenance plan from the day they were new to when I started. So I don't buy that it can't be done. And having built 10-year plans for people repeatedly, I don't even buy that it's a particularly difficult thing to do. But here's some questions about your long-range plans. Let's say you're further than that. Let's say you do have a long-range plan. Let's say that you don't even like my suggestion that you don't. If I come to your facility and just randomly talk to people, will I get a similar answer? Will people know about your 10-year plan? Do you share your 10-year plan with, like, your operators, for instance? With your regular maintenance planning team, for instance? Does the whole breadth of your organization in this facility understand your 10-year plan? Or at the very least, do they understand where they can reference it, how they can look at it? How are you presenting the plan? Is it just a photograph of a whiteboard? Because that's not, come on, let's get serious, please. I would suggest that your long-range maintenance plan should be in a P6 format. And the reason I say that is because, well, one, I just plain like powerful tools. But if you take a powerful tool like P6 and you know, it's like cooking a 5-course meal. You got to layer in the levels to get the maximum back out of the experience. So if you put your 10-year plan or your 20-year plan, or, you know, if you can't do any better than that, call it a 5-year plan, and you start that right in at P6, and that becomes your upper level schedule that your work management team will reference back to, and your turnaround project team will reference to. This will bring a level of stability and predictability to the table when, as most of the facilities that we are dealing with tend to be pretty much side of the desk turnaround planning. So we have some answers within the NAVEX team for helping people, you know, make side of the desk turnaround planning into something that can still drive you to excellence. But again, it's got to start with some basic things prior to all this fancy stuff that we keep trying to introduce. And the absolute commitment to a meaningful long-range facility plan is where it has to start. And that plan, if somebody has a reason why a plan like that should be secret, need to know only certain people get to be in on that, why, if you have a reason why that would be, I'd love to hear it. Because here's what I've learned. If you are freedom of information oriented, if you are completely transparent with what you do, then you would do something like continuously publishing your long-range plan back to your work groups. And when you do that, you open up the opportunity for highly experienced, very specialized people in very particular aspects of the whole big picture to take a look and possibly feed back to you, hey, I'm looking at your plan, but did you know that if you did this first, it would save, whatever it is that they want to talk about. Maybe it'll make things safer. That's always a win. Maybe it'll make things less expensive. That's also a win. Maybe it'll make the maintenance cycle less frequent. That's like the golden goose of turnaround work, right? Like, you'd be the guy that turns a 4-year cycle into a 6-year cycle, and you're a hero. Where are you going to get that information from? You're not going to dream it up sitting in an office tower in downtown Calgary. It's just not going to happen. Right? Those are the kinds of fine-tuning, the drivers behind execution excellence, that you're only going to get from the site where you're planning to execute. And one of the best ways to start that engagement, to start that conversation, is again with your long-range plan. Have a long-range plan, be committed to it. The vice president has to be committed. The COO has to be committed. And commitment is shown by discussing things and demonstrating a knowledge of the inner aspects of things. Share it fully, completely. I'm just going to challenge you. There is not one single person working on your site that you can possibly have any meaningful reason for not sharing a long-range maintenance plan with. Maybe you don't think it's any of their business. That's fine. But tell me what it's going to hurt. Because I've got a lot of really good tips and saving graces from people over the years on matters that others might have said were none of their business. So I want to end with emphasize two real points here. One is people have timelines and they don't respect them, right? It doesn't do any good to write pretty things in a program unless you're going to execute to the program, unless program compliance is mandatory. And even the people that are more or less getting everything else are messing up on timelines. And I get it. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Time slips away from all of us, right? It slipped away from me and took my hair with it. It's a discipline. But it's easier to execute that discipline if you have a formalized plan that's shared widely and has a leadership team who reference the formalized plan on some sort of a regular basis for the purpose of communicating to the entire work group, this is how we're going to do things. So then now people are taking more interest. Now they've got a vice president saying, we're going to do the things that you see on this chart at the times that they say that. Now people are going to start thinking about, oh, well, if you're going to do that anyway, or are you sure you want to do that because it's not really broken? Because I'll tell you what anybody that's spent 4 decades in facility operations and maintenance can tell you. There's a lot of false supposition comes onto anybody's facility with a lot of these projects that are not, understood to be, brownfield projects, not greenfield projects. One of the things about a brownfield project is there are already people there. One of the reasons you might want to let all those people know what you're planning on doing is because they might know that what you're planning on doing is less than optimum, call it. I've heard it worded other ways. I'm sure there's lots of people listing off a whole other lot of words right now. Well, we're just going to go with less than optimum, and I'm going to leave it at that for now. I'm probably not done talking about timelines, so I don't know if I ever will be. I think it's kind of become my timelines and scope, the two things that have to happen in order for a program to even matter. Thank you for listening. On behalf of the NavX team, keep chasing it. Excellence is a worthwhile thing to chase.